Welcome to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast.
Every week, they talk about the Vancouver Canucks with a fair amount of nonsense thrown in.
Sure, they're never the first with the news, nor the best connected, and definitely more off the rails than on.
But they've been talking puck the longest, and that counts for something, right?
So strap in for the longest running, best mediocre Canucks Hockey Podcast.
It's C4 with Chris and Anna.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 podcast, brought to you by Anna, Chris, and Craig the robot. Even when Chris isn't here, I'm too in habit to actually reference the fact that we have a robot recording who we have to talk to at the beginning of every episode. So yeah, Chris isn't here today, just me Ridin Solo. If you haven't been on our Discord, you may not know, but Chris managed to crack his head open. So yeah, had a bit of a domestic accident, stepped on a dog toy, I believe, and slipped on his stairs, head to wall. Yeah, wouldn't advise ever doing that. So yeah, not feeling super great, but we wish him well. He's in recovery, but we take head injuries and concussion very seriously on this podcast, so we thought it better to give him a rest day, and yeah, hopefully he'll be fit and firing for our next episode. So yeah, just me. I'll try and keep this short because no one wants to hear me by myself monologue, or maybe you do, but yeah, I love the sound of my own voice, but not quite that much. So yeah, we'll try and keep it short. My plan is to do a rewind on Canucks and Goldeneyes in the week that was, and yeah, I'm going to do an F word, bring back the F word, which you may not be shocked about given the events of the past couple of weeks, and we'll see how that goes. Yeah, so glorious weather today in Vancouver. I've loved it. Actually, glorious few days, so hoping spring has sprung. But yeah, not such a sunny week for either Canucks or Goldeneyes. Although if you're on Team Tank, maybe you're good with the 2 L's Canucks put up. Unfortunately, Goldeneyes lost today. That is Sunday as well. So we'll get into all of that, plus the kind of floating around issues with trades, Olympics, and that kind of thing. So yeah, without further ado, we'll kick things off with Rewind. So yeah, post-Olympic break, this is where we are. Sorry, just completely lost the plot there, / lost my notes. Yeah, Chris and I both predicted 0 points from the Canucks, so of course we're the negative ones. We're way too negative all the time. Canucks didn't get 0 points, they actually got 1 point, so God forbid we didn't think of that. But yeah, the Canucks opened up their post-Olympic break schedule with a loss to the flailing Winnipeg Jets at home. Yeah, Jets were playing without their starting goalie, Connor Hellebuyck, who is an Olympic winner, but giant loser of a person. I think we know this. So despite Hellebuyck not being there, it was still Connor's and Pedersen's off, like per 60 off the charts, but overall pretty dull game, I thought. Big story was probably before the game. Tyler Myers, rumors circling that he has been asked to waive his no move clause. So he was held out of the lineup for trade reasons, but took warm up, which most people thought was a sort of sentimental thing, let him get a spin on home ice. He's a big BC guy, his family is here, and it's really important to him. Adam Foote kind of said it was because people get injured in warm-ups and he might have to play anyway. And then it was pointed out to Adam Foote that Tyler Myers could have got injured in warm-up, especially as he went no Bucky. Flying pucks, things happen in warm-ups, like Adam Foote said, but it didn't really occur to him that it could have happened to Tyler Myers as well. I don't know what that story is there, whether they're just covering that they have any kind of feeling, sentimentality, or humanity to them. But yeah, obviously very emotional. Tyler Myers seems like a really good dude as far as hockey goes. He really cares about Canucks. He really cares about leadership and mentorship, and I think that you can take that for granted. And all the new Minnesota guys have that came over in the Quinn Hughes trade have said what an awesome person Tyler Myers is. The young players, especially like Tom Wielander, has spoken about what a great leader he is. So I do think that will be a big loss if Tyler Myers is traded. If there's a partner to be found, Detroit is the big leading contender in that category. I don't remember who said this. Was this Tom Wielander who said, he hopes if Tyler Myers has to go, it is to a contender? Maybe that was Brock, which seems more likely. Which I would love to, and Detroit's not really there yet. But yeah, we've kind of talked about this. Everything that's not nailed down needs to go out the door. If you can get some value from Tyler Myers and there is a partner, we do it, right? Like, we only talked about the one untradeable we kind of had before the season was Quinn, and then we kind of said, Quinn, do everything to keep him, but if you can't keep him, get some value. So, yeah, we do end up having to trade people we don't want to trade. Like, it would be great to keep a guy who really wants to be here, but realistically, that's not something Canucks are in a position to do. So, yeah, I do think that was the big story from the game. Just to talk a bit more about trade stuff, like who else might be possibly out the door. Teddy Bluger is obviously a big one. He is on an expiring contract. Like, he was at the Olympics. That's sort of has to count for something, and I think he's a good depth piece on a contending team. Yeah, definitely emphasis on depth there. But yeah, who else? Obviously, like, if you can get any value from Evander Kane, these 2 games this week really haven't showcased him. He hasn't showcased himself in any way, but we've talked about this. GMs are old-fashioned, and they kind of want bite in the playoffs, so sure, have at it. Brock's name's been in the trade rumors this week, and you do feel for a guy. Like, he talked about signing his extension and looking forward to not having his name in the trade rumors come deadline. Obviously, he's taking it with good grace, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm not sure we're at a point where Brock's gonna get some return, and I don't want to see the only vets coming back being like Philip Hronek. Like, does he look happy to be here? I don't know. Odd way of showing it if so I don't know. I wouldn't be opposed to keeping Brock, at least for now. Connor Garland, obviously, another person with some value and definitely showcased his kind of grit and defensive side this week, so that's possibly something. This is supposed to be Rewind, but yeah, I'm solo, so it's all over the place. So let's actually talk about the game, though. Kevin Lankinen still kind of on an Olympics hangover type thing, so Tolopilo started. For some reason, Canucks had Lankinen back up, even though they had some grace with keeping him in the press box without him taking up a roster spot, and that sort of NHL was giving teams some grace with that post-Olympics, so not sure why that was, but yeah, power to Lankinen, give him a game off. That's fine. Tolopilo did fine. Yeah, Drew O'Connor scored again. It's kind of crazy that he's leading Canucks in goals at this point. Yeah, he was on a line with Marco Rossi and Brock Besser. That might be something. I feel like I've heard a lot of hype about Marco Rossi kind of finally being able to play to his full potential. I'm just so cautious about that, so I think remains to be seen. But yeah, Kane and Pedersen play together again. Really don't understand that one. Not saying Pedersen is necessarily finding chemistry with anyone, but right now, but definitely not with Evander Kane. I do think the one thing Pedersen is offering is that sort of defensive responsibility, which, don't get me wrong, is not enough for an $11 million contract, like nowhere near enough. But yeah, Kane does not offer that. You know what is funny? I was watching this game thinking about, I saw some videos that the Goldeneyes had done with, I believe it was Rugby Canada, and it was, Goldeneyes were having to guess what rugby terms meant, and the rugby players were guessing what hockey terms meant, and one of them was back check, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure Evander Kane knows what that was. Maybe he should be asked that too. But yeah, if any GMs of other teams are listening, he is really defensively responsible and can offer something, some extra jump in the playoffs. So yeah, take him, please. Yeah, Canucks, Jets, they're both just like not good teams. And I think Jets really showed like what happens when you have a superstar goalie and your backup goalie who seems very sweet and nice, but like isn't necessarily like in tip-top condition. Maybe that's a bit harsh because really wasn't getting much scoring support either. Like Canucks and Jets both didn't score in the third period. Overtime, I kind of liked it. I know everyone's sour on overtime because of Olympics, but this is Canucks Jets game. It's allowed to be decided on something as inconsequential as 3-on-3 OT, and Canucks didn't play their usual boring style. They took some risks and it almost paid off. So I'm fine with that. Only 1 point on the board. We're good. The game against Seattle. Canucks had a bit of a rest, no coming back down to earth post-Olympics. They had Thursday, Friday off. They only had to travel to Seattle. They looked absolutely deflated, tired, something, so lackluster versus Seattle. I know the rivalry hasn't been there, either Canucks have been bad or Seattle's been bad or both. And there has been that playoff series to get us going. The league has never set up that rivalry for success. They didn't have a weekend game for the first season. But yeah, that was a pretty low effort game from the Canucks. Kraken looked decent. Obviously, it looked more like the Simpsons meme, stop, he's already dead by the end, so it didn't feel like a completely effective performance from Kraken, and by that I mean just it didn't feel like Canucks were putting any effort in as they started scoring the last of their goals there. Canucks looked defensively bad, offensively lackluster at their best, and offensively irresponsible with a ton of giveaways at their worst. Lankinen was fine. I know he made that mistake on the first or second goal there where he completely, first goal, lost sight of the puck. But, overall, he made some good stops. Both Lankinen and Decord were blaming people for their own mistakes, it seemed like, fighting off invisible demons. But yeah, I think honestly the only bright spot of this game is Kraken got another fake hat trick in that they got a goal yanked back, which happened previously with a McCann fake hat trick, and then if I had a nickel for every time Kraken fans thought that they had a hat trick and only to have it yanked back, I'd have 2 nickels. Not a lot, but it's weird that's happened twice. Bright spot in a terrible Saturday night game. I was kind of glad that I missed the second and third period and only had to watch it back after the fact. Coming up, Stars and Canes at home this week. Don't see any points there. Sorry, if that's too negative. Then there is the Blackhawks on Friday. on the road and Winnipeg on the road. Maybe Canucks beat the Chicago Blackhawks. We'll see. I don't know if Bedard is still fired up about missing the Olympics, so we'll see what Bedard shows up in that game on Friday. But I do see Canucks as a possibility to win there. But presumably Connor Hellebuyck will be back on Saturday, although I don't know the Jets schedule. Let me check it here and see if they have a back-to-back there. I almost just typed in Jet schedule and probably the NFL team would come up first. I didn't think of that. So they play Thursday at home against the Lightning. So yeah, I imagine Connor Hellebuyck will be back to play the Canucks. So yeah, maybe 2 points for the Canucks this week. Maybe not. Moving on to the Goldeneyes. So, Goldeneyes had an extended Olympic break. That's just how the women's schedule worked out. And they came back on Sunday, which is today as I'm recording, to play the Toronto Raptors. Yeah, that was their last home game before the break and their first home game back. They beat Toronto 5-0 in the previous game before the Olympic break. And today lost 2-1. Again, felt like an Olympic hangover game. Yeah, there was some exciting parts, but I would say overall, Goldeneyes can do so much better. Before the game, they added Brianna Brooks to their roster. She had a fierce entrance fit, so encourage you to check that out. The women's fits are always more exciting than the boring men's. But yeah, I can't say I know too much about her, so we'll be reading up and seeing what she has to offer as we go on. I believe it's a 10-day. Is it 10-day or 10 game? I believe 10-day contract, so we'll see. Yeah, Vancouver looked timid today. They kept skating the puck in rather than shooting, especially in that second period. Toronto only had to be good for about 5-10 minutes. In two instances where the Goldeneyes completely missed their defensive assignments, abandoned Emlyn Mashmeyer, we could see the goals coming. Mashmeyer had a great game apart from that and really wasn't at fault for those two goals. But yeah, not getting the scoring support. I thought Hannah Miller had a good game. She was tenacious. I thought Teresa Vanisova, I believe that's how you say it. Need to check that one. Was promising, but yeah, overall felt a bit lackluster. Izzy Daniel had the lone goal, but which once again, it seems to be the week for incorrectly flagging goals or trying to make excuses to yank back goals. Because yeah, that was reviewed by the central, the Warm of the PWHL. But yeah, nothing doing. It stayed on the board. Izzy Daniel is doing decently on the score sheet. Wouldn't say necessarily she was super noticeable apart from the goal. But yeah, Toronto didn't have to be that good. So yeah, that was a bit of a disappointing one. Canucks, sorry. Goldeneyes have a 5-game homestand, and this seemed like the most winnable game, right? If Goldeneyes can only win at home, you got to win every game at home. And against Toronto, who are only just above them in the standings and really beatable by Goldeneyes standards, that was really disappointing. And the next home game is against Boston Fleet, who are just dominating this year, the league leaders. So yikes-a-bee. That's what I have to say. I'm really looking forward to this homestand regardless of the results, because it's still awesome going. The atmosphere was great. The crowd went crazy for their Team Canada returning Olympians, and we're polite applause for both Team USA and Switzerland, who also medaled. Yeah, I think Team USA medaled. Isn't that right? Yeah. The crowd was great. Some good quacking to finish off when in the dying seconds. And I mean, it's a West Coast crowd, so it looked pretty empty until the game started. People don't show up on time in Vancouver; they just don't. So it was still over 12,000, which is like, again, not sold out, but like Goldeneyes fans really continuing to show up this season. They have the highest average attendance out if you're discounting all takeover tour games, so that's exciting. But yes, this home stands really got to count. It's only an 8-game league, but playoffs do seem like a bit of a distant dream at this stage. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, regardless, this is a young team, and by that I mean I don't mean the players. I mean it is in its first season, so still figuring stuff out. Obviously, you'd be a bit more patient with a team that wasn't. There's a kind of looming threat of expansion with, the new teams apparently being added at the end of this season. So that's the kind of looming threat, and otherwise you'd say that the Goldeneyes have a lot of time. But at the same time, like, I think them doing good things on the ice and in the community. I was hearing this week about them being really supportive of Cutting Edge, which I hope I'm getting that name right. I better check. Which is to us LGBTQ plus hockey club. If I Google it, it says it's a Cutting Edges. Okay, good. Because otherwise up as a landscape company, but I heard them speak on a panel this week. It was actually a heated rivalry panel that the library put on. So, but yeah, apparently Goldeneyes have been super supportive of that. So I think they're making a great impact on the city. But yeah, we'll see what actually happens in terms of results on the ice. Okay, I've talked a lot. That was longer than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, let's see what comes up for both teams this week as we kind of launch full throttle into the second half of the season post-Olympics. And yeah, I'm going to do a quick rant, she says, although I have a lot to say, so we'll see what happens with the F word. But that will be that, so I'll be back after this.
He liked to say the F word.
Oh, then get the here then. Okay, see ya.
Is going to have the F word on it.
I wish I could give you an explanation about it. I can't.
You, out of here.
You said the F word, Dad.
You called me the F word.
Okay, it's the return of the F word. I'm sure none of you are surprised that I want to rant on stuff. I have so much, like, copious notes for Rewind because I knew I was by myself. I have hardly any notes for the F word because I think I'm just going to rant and see where we go. Obviously, I'm going to talk about Team USA, and that's basically the only thing I've written. We talked a little bit about this last week, but I think we had only seen the videos of Kash Patel partying in the men's dressing room post their Olympic gold medal game. Hadn't seen the phone call come out yet. So for those of you who don't know, obviously both Team USA men and women won their gold medals at the Olympics. The USA men's team celebrated wildly afterwards, and I believe it was Dylan Larkin's Instagram Live, which showed a phone call from the president, Donald Trump, who was congratulating them, and then also made reference to the fact that he was going to invite them to the White House for the State of the Union address. Major political event, I would say, and made a very crass joke about having to invite the women too, otherwise he would get impeached. All the players laughed. Obviously, you might be like, oh, we don't know, all the players laughed, and maybe they didn't hear. There was some players saying 2 for 2, validating that the women's success there. But yeah, it was a gross moment. Is it shocking that a president, like especially Donald Trump, who's tried to insert himself into this USA narrative we saw during the Four Nations, especially in that sort of USA versus Canada thing narrative, and he wants to insert himself and use this hockey team. So it's not shocking at all that he called. If you're in that environment, you know, it's rowdy, people are drinking. I don't actually blame the players for laughing or not standing up to Donald Trump in that moment. It's a very strange sort of thing to happen, I think. I do not love any of the players' response because I think, Too Many Men podcast said it best that, like, it's hard to stand up in that moment, but it's not hard at all to say sorry. It really should have been so easy. I don't think what Jack Hughes said counts as an apology. I really don't think that what anyone said counts as an apology. Now I forget who sort of half-assed apologized. But yeah, Jack Hughes said it wasn't political. I mean, you're responding to a joke from the most divisive president maybe in US history, who is, you know, effectively letting citizens be disappeared or murdered on the streets of the US. Not to mention, how he's treating immigrants, how he's treating Canadians, how he's treating, how the US is acting, the US military is acting. So, yeah, supporting Donald Trump by going to the State of the Union. I'm sorry, Jack Hughes, that's super political. And every single player that said, the thing was overblown, I'm sorry, that's just the consequences of your actions. Yeah, and having Hillary Knight, like the queen, the legend that is Hillary Knight, who has just come off a gold medal and an engagement to her Olympic star fiance, having to talk about it. And I think she summed it up well. And she basically said that why a woman having to kind of apologize for this or talk about this bad behavior. I'd much rather see men actually been held to account for their actions. And yeah, it's just very funny to me that there's all the people that said, that no one's getting mad about NHL players literally missing games to go to a political event. Yeah, and I think all the AI nonsense that's come out since then. I mean, Brady Tkachuk is kind of, I was going to say, been the victim of the president's AI, but yeah, definitely not a victim, Brady Tkachuk. But I hopefully it's super obvious to them now. I don't think it is. I think they will go on regardless, but they have been treated as pawns by this administration. And yeah. Are we shocked and surprised about Jack and Quinn Hughes and the way they've talked about it and the way they've had their mom talk about it? It's weird. Yes and no, because not at all shocked about hockey players' politics. Will never be. It's one of the most conservative leagues, I think, in the world, I would say. But yeah, Quinn is usually a bit smarter than that and has been about openly showcasing that, and that's not really his public image. But yeah, obviously we also saw the Hughes brothers do some PR work going on SNL last night, where Connor Story was presenting. Connor Story is the star of Canadian show Heated Rivalry. Can I just emphasize that, because there was a joke written into the monologue that Colin Story's character, Ilya Rozanov, plays for the Boston Raiders. And Jack Hughes said, "Oh, is that in the NHL?" And he said, "No, it's in the HBO." Heat of Rivalry is not an HBO show. It's a Canadian show. We paid for it with our tax dollars. So I know I get mad at that all the time, but yeah. Obviously there was Hughes brothers were on SNL doing that like PR work. I thought it was gross. The like Hillary Knight and Megyn Kelly were on as well. And there was just jokes made about, the women being better and the women sort of being the real guests. But I felt gross about the whole thing. I didn't want, the Hughes brothers laughing it off as if it didn't matter. They also made reference to the fact that the male players haven't watched the show and the women players have. And, honestly, yeah, that's a whole thing. If the wives and girlfriends of the NHL can do one thing, it would be to make their husbands and boyfriends watch the damn show, because hopefully, and Heated Rivalry season 1 only deals in a vague way about hockey culture, and the problematic elements of it, but more to come on that. But I don't know how you could watch that show and not interrogate it. I mean, who knows? NHL players lack self-awareness, so we'll see. But yeah, watch the damn show and act respectfully towards women, not just when you are hanging out with them or in public, but when you're in your little locker rooms or your little groups by yourself. It's such a low standard, but yeah, the bar is on the floor, and yeah, somehow NHL players have found ways to crawl under this bar on the floor. Anyway, we're not shocked, we're not surprised, but still disappointed and still want to see them do better. And I don't think that's too much to ask. Okay, that's the end of my rant. That's the end of F Word. That's the end of the show. I didn't really remember to pull up our messages where I kind of have to say where you can find us, but I'm A4 size 03 everywhere. Chris is Light Force pretty much everywhere. The show is variations of the C4 podcast on X, the real C4 podcast on Threads, which I haven't been on maybe ever. On Blue Sky, I think we are c4podcast.com. That's also our website where you can find our old episodes. If you've somehow enjoyed this episode or anything else we create, we're also on Buy Me a Coffee, or as we like to call it, Buy Me a Pint. And yes, I do that live every week. And it sounds really sad when I'm doing it myself, please buy me a pint. But yes, if you want to donate a one-off, that goes towards buying us pints when Chris and I eventually meet up and he's allowed to drink alcohol again after this concussion subsides. And yeah, otherwise you can sponsor us, give us some money monthly or annually. If you give us some money annually, you will receive a discount on that. You get access to stuff like Off the Rails when we remember to record it. Chris has a backlog, so when we remember to release it also. And we'll send you some stickers as well. If you haven't received your sticker yet, because I'm feeling that some people have not yet, please maybe poke us and we will do that for you. Yeah, so this was way longer than I thought I would talk just by myself. Yeah, I'm a theater kid. I enjoy talking, it turns out. I'm not shocked. But yeah, with all that said, we out.